The envelope was greasy from the fried chicken basket Mark had just finished, and he slid it across the diner table like it was a napkin he was done with. Jiwei Rai watched his son's hand retreat back to his phone, thumb already scrolling, and he felt something cold settle in his chest. Not yet. Just a quiet, hollow disappointment that had been building for years. Dade, just sign it, Mark said without looking up. I already filled out the routing number. Brenda checked all the boxes. It's just a direct deposit form. Social Security lets you change it whenever you want. Rai picked up the envelope. His fingers were thick and calloused from decades of gripping pipe wrenches and soldering torches. The skin on his knuckles had cracked so many winters that the lines looked like a river delta. He opened the flap and pulled out the form. His name was already typed in, his Social Security number, and a bank account that didn't belong to him. He said slowly, setting the paper down, "This is your account number," Mark said, still scrolling. "We've been over this. You don't need the full check. You've got the duplex paid off. You've got Medicare. Your truck's been paid off since before the kids were born. We need the money more than you do. School tuition braces the roof. It's not like you're going anywhere or doing anything." Rai looked across the table at his daughter-in-law. Brenda was stirring her coffee with a tiny plastic spoon, her lips pressed together in that tight line she used when she was trying to look patient. She was a good-looking woman, still sharp at 42, with expensive highlights in her hair and a tennis bracelet on her wrist that Rai had never seen before. "Brenda," he said, "is this your idea or his?" She looked up. "It's both of ours, Dad. We talked about it for weeks. We didn't want to bother you, but we're really in a bind. Mark's commission structure changed at work. My real estate sales are down. We're tapping into credit cards just to make the mortgage. We're not asking for a handout. We're just asking you to redirect a check you don't even spend." "I spend it," Rai said. "I buy groceries, I pay the water bill, I put gas in the truck, I buy birthday presents for the grandkids." "Not the whole thing," Mark cut in. "You've got savings. You told me once you had over 10,000 in the bank. That's enough for a year of your expenses. And it's not like you need to leave us an inheritance. We're not going to fight over your estate. We're just trying to survive." Rai took a sip of his coffee. It was hot and bitter and tasted like every other cup he'd had in this diner since Basher Sen. He remembered bringing Mark here when he was 7 years old. They'd read a plate of pancakes and Mark had spilled syrup all over the booth. Rai had cleaned it up with napkins and told the waitress it was his fault. She'd smiled and brought them another plate on the house. That waitress was long retired now. The diner had changed hands 3 times, but the coffee was the same. "I missed your Little League games," Rai said quietly. "You brought that up Ryer. Do you remember why?" Mark finally looked up from his phone. "Because you were working. You always had an excuse." "I was working double shifts because your mother was sick," Rai said. "She had the breast cancer that came back twice. The insurance covered some of it, but not all. I took every extra job I could find. I didn't tell you because you were 9 years old, and I didn't want you to worry. I made sure you had cleats. I made sure you had a glove. I made sure you had the $20 for the team picture. I didn't go to the games because I was at a job site, and if I didn't show up, we didn't eat." RK shifted in his seat. "I know all that, Dad. I appreciate it, but that was then. This is now. You're retired. You don't have those pressures anymore. Then why are you pressuring me?" "I'm not pressuring. I'm asking. There's a difference." Rai leaned back and looked around the diner. A young couple in the corner sharing a milkshake. An old man reading a newspaper at the counter. The fry cook sliding eggs onto plates. These people didn't know him. They saw an old man in a flannel shirt and worn jeans, the kind of man you'd pass on the street and never remember. and that was fine. He'd spent a lifetime being invisible. It had served him well. Do you know what I did for a living? Plumbing, residential and commercial. You ran your own van for 25 years before you sold the business. Before I sold the routes. Rai corrected. I didn't sell the business. I sold the customer list and the equipment. The company that bought it was called Superior Piping. Do you remember that name? ARK shrugged. Vaguely. Some big corporation. They went public in Itsenjobai Toshicho, Rai said. I got paid in stock, not cash. I took stock because I trusted the owner. He was a veteran like me. He told me to hold on to it, and I did. I held on to it through the dot-com crash. I held on to it through Artsenunbai. I held on to it through the pandemic. And in all that time, I never touched it. Not a single ARK laughed, but it was nervous. What are you saying? You own stock. A few $1,000s worth. I don't know the exact number, Rai said. I haven't looked in a while, but every year, my accountant sends me a report, and every year, I put it in a drawer and forget about it. That's the kind of man I am. I don't check the meme rocket. I don't obsess over money. I just live my life. Brenda put down her spoon. Rai, you saying you have a portfolio. How much we talking about? I don't think that's relevant, Rai said. What's relevant is that you asked me to redirect my Social Security check, my livelihood, the money I depend on to buy my own groceries and pay my own bills. You didn't ask me for help with a specific expense. You didn't come to me with a budget and say, Dad, we're short on the roof. Could you lend us 1,000? You came to me with a pre-filled form and told me this is how it's going to be from now on. You didn't ask. You demand. ARK's face flushed. I didn't demand. I presented a solution. You handed me an envelope across a table and told me to sign it. That's not presenting a solution. That's presenting an ultimatum. The diner had gone quiet. The fry cook had stopped scraping the grill. The old man with the newspaper was pretending not to listen. Rai felt the weight of their eyes on him, but he didn't lower his voice. He wasn't ashamed. He was tired. Tired of being seen as a burden. Tired of being treated like his life had already ended, and his only remaining function was to provide a check for people who'd already written him off. ARK, I'm going to say this once, Rai said. I love you. You're my son. I held you when you were born. I cried when you graduated high school. I gave you a down payment on your first house, which you never paid back. I've never mentioned that until now, because I didn't think it mattered. Family helps family, but family also respects family. You forgot the respect part. Mark opened his mouth, but Rai held up a hand. Let me finish. You will not get my Social Security check. Not now, not ever. That check is mine. I paid into the system for 47 years. I rent. And I'm not handing it over to anyone who looks at me like I'm a dead man walking. If you need help, you can ask me like an adult. But you will never demand from me again. Do you understand? Mark's face was pale. Brenda was gripping her coffee cup so tight her knuckles were white. The waitress, a heavyset woman named Dottie, walked over and refilled Rai's coffee without a word. She'd been working the breakfast shift for 12 years. She knew Rai's order by heart. I think you should go, Brenda said, her voice cold. You've made your point. We're trying to raise a family here. We're trying to survive. And you're sitting on a pile of money you won't even look at, and you can't help us for one single year. Rai reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. It was heavy stock, cream-colored, embossed with black lettering, no logo, just a name and a phone number. He slid it across the table to Mark. Call that number, he said. Ask for Arison. Tell him Rai Collier sent you. He'll answer any questions you have about my financial situation, and then maybe you'll understand why I'm not signing that form. Mark picked up the card and turned it over, his eyes narrowed. What is this? Some kind of lawyer? Arison is my portfolio manager, Rai said. He's been handling my investments since Itzain Jobe Bashir, sir. He worked with a firm on Wall Street until he retired, and now he runs a private trust for a small group of clients. I'm one of them. Brenda snatched the card from Mark's hand. What investments? You're a plumber. You fix toilets. You drove a van with your name on it. What investments? Slow and steady ones, G.A. said. I bought municipal bonds in the EA Raleigh 80s when yields were through the roof. I bought real estate outside the city when everyone was selling. I bought index funds in the 90s when no one talked about them. I didn't get rich quick, I got rich slow, and I got rich quiet, because that's how real wealth works. It doesn't announce itself. It just sits there, quietly compounding, while the world looks the other way. He pushed his chair back and stood up. Dottie was already bringing over a to-go cup. He hadn't asked for it. She knew his habits. Wait, Mark said, half rising. Where are you going? G.A. said. I'm going to drink my coffee on the porch and watch the hawks. I suggest you call a rison. And I suggest you think long and hard about what you just tried to do to your own father. He walked to the register and pulled out a 20. Dottie waved him off. On the house, G.A. You've been coming here longer than I've been alive. Keep the change, he said, dropping the bill on the counter. For the girls. Dottie's daughters worked the evening shift. He knew their names. He knew their schedules. He knew Dottie had been saving for their college for 8 years on tips and minimum wage. She never asked him for anything. She just poured his coffee and smiled. Mark and Brenda watched him go. The bell above the door chimed. G.A. climbed into his old Ford pickup, the one with the rust spot on the driver's side door and the cracked bench seat. The engine turned over on the first try. It always did. He'd rebuilt it twice himself. He didn't look back at the diner. He didn't need to. He knew what he'd see in his son's eyes. Confusion and the first hint of a dawning understanding that the father he'd dismissed as a relic was something far more substantial, more dangerous. The phone in his pocket buzzed. A text from Arisen, Mr. Collier. A mutual acquaintance called your son's mortgage holder. Just a friendly inquiry. Let me know if you'd like to pursue further action. A G.A. smiled and typed back. Let's wait. Give him time to call you. He put the phone down and drove home, the summer sun OARM through the windshield, the radio playing a country station that was older than the songs on it. He passed the duplexes he'd built, the rotary stores he'd supplied, the school where his kids had learned to read. Every street held a memory, every building held a story, and sitting in his pocket, in a battered leather wallet, was a card that could change everything. He pulled into his driveway and shut off the engine. The old house creaked in the heat. The porch swing needed painting. The Girardin was overgrown, but it was his, all his, paid for, owned outright. He settled into the swing with his coffee and watched the red-tailed hawk circle overhead. It was the same hawk he'd seen every afternoon for the past 2 years. He didn't know if it was the same bird or a descendant. It didn't matter. It was a hawk. It knew what it was. It didn't need anyone to remind it. His phone buzzed again. Okay, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to sound like that. Can we talk? Gary let it ring. He'd call back later. After the coffee led. After the hawk landed. After the dust settled. He'd been patient his whole life. A little more patience wasn't going to kill him, but his son's ego. That might not survive the next 48 hours, and Gary was okay with that. Some lessons had to hurt to stick. He'd ran that in the trades. You burned your hand once on a hot pipe. You never forgot to check the temperature. Mark was about to burn his hand, and Gary was too old to prevent the fire. He'd just make sure there was a bucket of water nearby when the flames got too high. Gary sipped his coffee, and the world kept turning, oblivious to the old man on the porch who was about to remind everyone that he still knew how to grip a wrench. Mark didn't call Arisen that night. He couldn't. His hands were shaking too much to dial. and Brenda was pacing the kitchen like a caged animal, her heels clicking against the tile in a rhythm that made his teeth ache. The CAR sat on the kitchen counter between them, cream-colored and unassuming, but it might as well have been a grenade with the pin pulled. "This is ridiculous," Brenda said for the 5th time. "Your father is a retired plumber. He wears flannel shirts from Goodwill. He drives a truck with duct tape on the tail light. There is no portfolio. There is no Wall Street manager. He's messing with us. He's trying to make us feel guilty." Mark picked up the CARD and turned it over again. The phone number had a New York area code. The name H.A. Rarison was printed in a font that looked expensive, the kind of font you saw on bank lobby doors. "Mom always said Dad was secretive," Mark said slowly. "She told me once that he had a safe deposit box she didn't know about. She thought it was his Navy memorabilia. But what if it wasn't?" Brenda stopped pacing. "Navy memorabilia? Your father was in the Navy. Vietnam era. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't talk about anything. That's the whole problem. He just sits on that porch and watches birds and acts like the world doesn't exist." "Then call the number," Brenda said. "Prove him wrong. Call this H.A. Rarison person and let him tell you that your father has $3,000 in a savings account, and that's it. Then we can go back to the original plan." Mark looked at the CAR. His thumb traced the embossed letters. Something about the weight of it felt wrong. Normal business CARs were flimsy. This one felt like it belonged in a frame. "What if he's telling the truth?" Mark asked quietly. Brenda threw her hands up. "Then we're screwed. Then we've been treating a millionaire like a charity case, and he's about to cut us off completely." "Is that what you want to hear? Fine. He's a secret millionaire, and he's going to punish us for trying to take his Social Security check." "Great. Call him and get it over with." Mark picked up his phone and dialed. The call connected after one ring. "A. Rarison and Associates," a crisp female voice answered. "How may I direct your call?" "Oh, this is Mark Collier. My father, G.A. Collier, gave me this number. I'm supposed to ask for H. Rarison." "One moment, Mr. Collier." The hold music was classical, something with violins and a steady piano. Mark tapped his fingers on the counter. Brenda leaned in close, her ear almost touching his. A man's voice came on the line, deep, measured, the kind of voice that had been trained to calm nervous investors. "RK, this is A. Rarison. Your father mentioned you might call. I've been expecting your contact." "You have? Why?" "Because I've known your father for 40 years. I know how he operates. He gives people just enough rope to either climb out of a hole or hang themselves. He wanted you to have a choice." Mark swallowed. "What kind of portfolio are we talking about? I need to know. My wife and I, we're struggling. We made some bad decisions with credit. We're behind on the mortgage. I just need to know if my father can help us and how much help we're actually talking about." There was a pause. Mark heard the tapping of a keyboard. "Collier, I'm looking at your father's primary trust. He has instructed me not to share specific figures without his written authorization. But I can tell you this. He has never missed a payment on anything. His credit score is in the top 1% nationally. He holds no debt. His assets are diversified across multiple sectors, both domestic and international. He has enough liquidity to buy your house outright with cash and still have change left over for a new CAR for every member of your family." Brenda gasped. RK felt his legs go weak. "Are you serious?" "He's that wealthy. Your father is the most financially disciplined man I've ever worked with. He didn't inherit a dime. He built everything himself, $1, one investment at a time, over a span of 5 decades. He never borrowed against his assets. He never leveraged his real estate. He never took unnecessary risks. He just saved and invested consistently, year after year, while the rest of the world was buying boats and taking vacations. And now he is extremely comfortable." Mark leaned against the wall. "Why didn't he tell us?" We're his family. We're his only family. I believe, Arisen said C.A. ruefully, that he wanted you to find your own way. He didn't want you to become dependent on his wealth. He wanted you to build your own character the way he did. That's why he never gave you large sums of money. That's why he let you struggle. He was teaching you something. He was teaching me to be poor, Mark said bitterly. He was teaching you to be self-reliant. Arisen corrected. There's a difference. Poverty is a circumstance, self-reliance is a skill. Your father has that skill in abundance. He was waiting for you to develop it on your own. Mark closed his eyes. The kitchen spun around him. Brenda was crying now, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Mark asked, "What's he going to do? Is he going to take the house? Is he going to ruin us?" "Your father has not authorized any punitive measures," Arisen said. "However, I must inform you that the bank holding your mortgage is a subsidiary of a larger financial institution in which your father holds significant equity. He made a call this afternoon, not to threaten you, just to inform them that he had a family interest in your account. They put a temporary hold on your lines of credit as a precaution, standard procedure when a major stakeholder flags an account. I can release that hold with a single email, but I would need your father's consent first." Mark's eyes snapped open. "He owns the bank. Are you telling me my father owns the bank that holds my mortgage? He owns enough of it to have a conversation with the CEO. That's all I'm authorized to say." Brenda grabbed the phone from Mark's hand. "This is Brenda, Mr. Arisen, his wife. We need to know how to fix this. We were wrong, we were so wrong. Please tell us what to do." Arisen's voice remained calm. "Apologize to your father, sincerely. Without conditions, without caveats. He's a reasonable man. He's been reasonable his entire life, but he's also a man who values respect above all else. You hurt him deeply today. He doesn't show his emotions easily, but I could hear it in his voice when he called me. You made him feel like a burden. That is the one thing he will not tolerate." Mark took the phone back. "Well, apologize, we'll do anything. Just tell me the bank will let us keep the house. The kids are in school. They have friends. I can't move them again. I will speak to your father in the morning," Arisen said. "In the meantime, I suggest you sit down with your wife and think about what you want your relationship with him to look like going forward. Money is not the issue here, respect is. And that's a conversation no one can have on your behalf." The line went dead. Mark read it, Brenda read at him. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. "We've been idiots," Brenda whispered. "Complete idiots. The man owned the bank. The bank were begging to restructure our mortgage. And we handed him an envelope asking for his social security check. What were we thinking? We weren't thinking," Mark said. "We were panicking. We were scared. And we took it out on him." He walked to the window and looked out at the rockin' street. Their house was a nice one, 4 bedrooms, a backyard with a swing set, a 2-car garage with a leased SUV that was already gone. He'd been so proud when they bought it. He'd been convinced he was finally making it, that he was finally surpassing his father's modest life. But his father never needed a big house. His father never needed a leased car. His father never needed any of the things Mark had been desperately trying to acquire. His father had simply waited, quietly, patiently, building a mountain while everyone else was building sandcastles. Mark said, "Right now." He dialed his father's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Dad, I know you're probably sitting on that porch with your coffee, watching the birds. And I know you can see my name on the screen. Please pick up. I need to tell you something. I need to say I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I was wrong about the check. I was wrong about your life. I was wrong about you. Please call me back whenever you're ready. I'll wait." He hung up and dropped his phone on the counter. His hands were still shaking. Brenda came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Hell, call back. He's your father. He loves you," Mayor K said. "But I don't know if he likes me, and right now, that feels a lot more important." The rest of the night was silent. They ate leftover pasta for dinner. They helped the kids with homework. They tucked them into bed and read them stories. And through it all, MARK kept glancing at his phone, hoping for a call that didn't come. The next morning, RK drove to his father's duplex. He parked on the street and walked up the cracked driveway. The porch swing was empty. The coffee cup was gone. The front door was open just a crack. MRK knocked. "Dad, it's me." No answer. He pushed the door open slowly. The living room was tidy but sparse. A worn couch, a wooden rocking chair, a bookshelf filled with old paperbacks, and a single framed photograph of his mother. There was no sign of Guerra. MARK walked through the small kitchen. A clean sink, a coffee maker still arm, a note on the counter held down by a salt shaker. "Gone fishing. Be back by dinner. Help yourself to the fridge." ARK laughed, a strange mix of relief and frustration. His father hadn't fled. His father hadn't disappeared. His father had just gone fishing, like he'd been doing every Saturday for the past 30 years. He opened the fridge. Inside was a 6-pack of beer, a CA rot, and a container of leftover stew. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just the same simple groceries his father had always bought. MARK took a beer and sat on the porch. The morning sun was you. A squirrel chattered from a tree branch. The neighborhood was quiet and peaceful, the kind of place where people waved when they drove by. He thought about his father's wealth, the bank, the trust, the stock that had split 12 times. It didn't match this house. It didn't match this porch. It didn't match the man who wore boots older than his grandchildren. And that was the point MARK realized. His father had never been defined by his money. He'd been defined by his character, his work ethic, his patience, his refusal to let wealth change who he was. MARK had been defined by his desperation, his greed, his willingness to see his father as a resource rather than a person. He finished the beer and set the bottle on the porch railing. He'd wait. He'd wait as long as it took, because for the first time in years, he was ready to learn the lesson his father had been trying to teach him all along. Guerra didn't go fishing that day. He drove 40 miles north to a small lake he'd been visiting since Izotsiba, but he didn't bring a rod. He brought a COO with sandwiches and a thermos of coffee, and he sat on a fallen log and watched the water ripple in the breeze. The lake was quiet. A few ducks paddled near the reeds. An old man in a john boat was trolling for bass near the opposite shore. Guerra had seen that man before. They'd nodded to each other over the years, never exchanging names, never needing to. Rison had called him before he left the house. Your son reached out. He seemed genuinely shaken. His wife was in tears. I told them the basics, just enough to make the point. Nothing about the real estate portfolio or the offshore accounts. Just enough to rattle their cage. Good, Guerra had said. Let them sit with it for a while. The panic is the first step. The apology is the second. The change is the third. I need to see all three before I do anything else. I think they're on step 2 already. Hey, Rison had said. I called you twice. Left a voicemail. Said he was sorry. Sounded like he meant it. Is sorry he got caught, Guerra said. There's a difference. I need to know if he's sorry for what he tried to do, or sorry that it didn't work. Rison had laughed, a dry old man's laugh. You were always hard on him, Guerra. I remember when he was a kid, you used to make him mow the lawn with a push mower, even after you bought a riding one. You said he needed to learn to sweat. The riding mower was for my bad back, Guerra had replied. He was 16 and had 2 good legs. He could push. He needed to push. It built his arms and his character. Same thing here. He needs to sweat this one out. And so Guerra had driven to the lake and sat in the quiet and let his son stew. He'd been a father for 42 years. He knew that sometimes love meant stepping back, and letting the other person feel the full weight of their mistakes. The sun climbed higher. The old man in the John boat caught a fish and held it up, a flash of silver in the morning light. G.A. Rye raised his coffee thermos in a silent salute. The old man waved back. By noon, G.A. Rye's phone buzzed, a text from Mark. "I'm sitting on your porch, Dad. The beer's due arm, but I'm drinking it anyway. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." G.A. Rye smiled. "That was a start," he typed back. "There's another one in the fridge. Help yourself, Mark. I did. Thanks. Tell me what you're thinking." "That I'm a fool. That I took you for granted. That I forgot who you Rye. Mark, my father. A man who worked harder than anyone I've ever known. A man who never complained, even when he had every right to. A man who gave me everything I needed, even when I didn't appreciate it. G.A. Rye. And I treated you like a liability. I was red. I was drowning in debt. The house was underwater. The credit cards were maxed. Brenda was talking about moving in with her sister. I panicked, and I looked at you, and I saw a check. That's all I saw. I didn't see my dad. I saw a monthly payment I could redirect. I'm disgusted with myself." G.A. Rye read the text twice. Then he typed, "Do you understand now what you were asking me to give up? Mark. I understand you run that check. Every dollar of it. 47 years of working with your hands while the rest of the world was taking breaks. 47 years of paying into a system that wasn't always fair to you. And I tried to take it like it was nothing, like it was just change. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." G.A. Rye put the phone down and looked at the lake. The old man in the boat was heading back to shore, his stringer full of bass. G.A. Rye's eyes stung just a little. He blinked it away. He had waited 42 years to hear his son say that, to see the pride drain out of Mark's voice and be replaced by something real, something humble, something that looked like the boy he used to know before the world got complicated and money got in the way. He called Mark instead of texting. Mark answered on the first ring. "I didn't expect you to call. You're sitting on my porch drinking my beer," G.A. said. "Figured I'd save you the embarrassment of leaving a voicemail." Mark laughed, a nervous sound. "I'm not leaving, I told you. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'm at a lake about 40 miles north of here. I came out here to think, to clear my head. Can I come up? I can drive. I'll be there in an hour." Rye paused. He looked at the water. The ducks had paddled closer, hoping for breadcrumbs he didn't have. "I'll be here," he said. "But don't bring Brenda. This is a father-son conversation. You can bring her next time." "I understand. I'll come alone." G.A. Rye gave him directions and hung up. Then he leaned back on the log and closed his eyes. The sun was arm on his face. A breeze ride the scent of pine and damp roth. It was a good day to have a hard conversation. He'd been putting it off for too long. Mark arrived in a rental car, a small sedan that looked like it had come from the airport lot. He stepped out in jeans and a polo shirt, looking younger and more vulnerable than G.A. Rye had seen him in years. He walked over to the log and sat down beside his father, leaving a respectful foot of space between them. "Thanks for coming," G.A. Rye said. "Thanks for letting me come. I wasn't sure you would." G.A. nodded. "I wasn't sure I would either. But you said some things in that text that reminded me of the boy I raised. The one who used to bring me coffee in the G.A. rage when I was working on the truck." Mark smiled weakly. "I remember that. You'd have me hand you the wrenches. I'd always hand you the wrong one just to see if you'd get mad. You never did. I figured you'd learn the names eventually. And you did." They sat in silence for a while. The old man with the John boat had driven off. The lake was still. The ducks had given up on food and drifted to the far shore. "Dade, I need to tell you something about the money," Mark said finally. "About why I tried to take your check." "I know why," G.A. Rye said. "Pressure, far. You thought I had more than I needed, and you didn't have enough. It's a common mistake. People look at someone else's surplus and think they have a right to it, but they forget that the surplus came from someone else's sacrifice. I know that now, Meme said, but there's more. I also wanted to prove that I could manage things better than you, that I could take what you had and make it grow. I wanted to show you that you'd wasted your potential by being too cautious, by being too slow, by living too small. Rai turned to look at his son. Did you really think that? I did. I thought you were a coward, a man who never took risks, a man who settled for small things because he was afraid of big ones. I looked at your duplex and your truck and your flannel shirts, and I thought you'd given up on life. I thought you'd retired into a corner and just decided to fade away. I was too proud to see the truth. What truth? The truth that you won. You won the game a long time ago. You just never read about the trophy. You read about the peace. You read about the freedom. You built a life where you didn't owe anyone anything, where you could sit on a log by a lake and not worry about a single bill. That's not cowardice. That's wisdom. I just couldn't see it because I was too busy chasing things that didn't matter. Rai felt his chest loosen. He hadn't realized how tight it had been. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear those words. Mark, I didn't tell you about the money because I wanted you to find your own way, he said. But I also didn't tell you because I was red. I was red that if you knew, you'd treat me differently, that you'd see a bank account instead of a father. And that's exactly what happened when you found out. I knew it would happen. That's why I kept it secret. You were right, Mark said. I did treat you differently. I treated you like a means to an end. I treated you like a solution to my problems. But I didn't see you. I didn't see the man who taught me how to ride a bike. I didn't see the man who stayed up all night when I had the flu. I didn't see the man who cried at my wedding because he was proud of me. I just saw numbers. I'm ashamed of that. I'll be ashamed of it for the rest of my life. Rai reached out and put a hand on his son's shoulder. You don't have to Rai that shame forever. You just have to learn from it. That's what I've been waiting for. Not an apology, a lesson. I need to know you've learned it. I have, Mark said. I've learned that money doesn't fix anything. It just amplifies what's already there. If you're broken, money makes you more broken. If you're grateful, money makes you more grateful. I was broken. I was desperate. I was angry. And I took it out on the one person who never deserved it. Rai squeezed his shoulder. That's good. That's real. Keep that feeling close. Don't let it go. They sat in silence again, but it was a different kind of silence. The kind that felt like healing. I'm going to make things right, Mark said. I'm going to get a real job. Not a commission job, not a gig job. A real job with a steady paycheck and a real boss. I'm going to sell the house and move into something smaller. I'm going to pay off my credit cards and start over from scratch, the way you did. Are you sure about that? Rai asked. That's a hard road. I watched you walk it for 47 years, Mark said. I think I can handle a few years of it, and maybe at the end, I'll have a lake of my own to sit by. Rai smiled. It was a wide smile, the kind that reached his eyes and crinkled the corners. Maybe you will, he said. But even if you don't, you'll have something better. You'll have your self-respect back, and that's worth more than any bank account. Mark nodded. His eyes were wet, but he didn't wipe them. He let the tears fall. I love you, Dad. I always have. I just forgot to show it. I know, Rai said. I never doubted that. I just needed you to remember. They drove back to the duplex together, Mark following in the rental car. When they pulled into the driveway, Brenda was sitting on the porch swing with the kids. She stood up when she saw them, her face pale and uncertain. Rai got out first. He walked up to her and gave her a hug. Not a stiff one, a real one. I'm not angry, he said. I was disappointed, but I'm not angry anymore. We're going to figure this out, as a family. Brenda started crying. The kids ran up and hugged his legs. Mark stood by the truck watching, his face a mixture of relief and awe. Gia looked at his son and smiled. "Come on," he said. "Let's get some ice cream. My treat. I think we've a-ronned it." The ice cream was a simple affair at a local dairy bar that had been there since the Eats and Joe Badushers. Gia ordered a vanilla cone with sprinkles for each of the kids, a chocolate shake for Brenda, and a plain cup of coffee for himself. Mark stood at the counter staring at the menu like it held the secrets to the universe, until Gia nudged him and said, "Get the butter pecan. You always liked butter pecan." Mark blinked. "You remember that?" "Of course I remember. You were 8 years old, and you ate 3 scoops and threw up in the parking lot. Your mother was furious. I thought it was funny. You never ate butter pecan again after that." Mark laughed. "A real. The kind that came from somewhere deep. I forgot about that. I forgot about a lot of things." They found a picnic table under a striped umbrella, the kind that had been there so long the paint was peeling and the metal was rusted. The kids ran off to a small playground nearby, their cones dripping in the summer heat. Brenda sat across from Gia, her shake untouched, her eyes still red from crying. "Gia," she said, "I want to apologize too. I was the one who pushed Mark to make the demand. I kept telling him you had more than enough, and you wouldn't even notice. I made him feel like he was being weak for hesitating. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Gia took a sip of his coffee. It was lukewarm and slightly bitter, just the way he liked it. "Brenda, you're a mother. You were trying to protect your kids. I understand that. I made the same choices when I was your age. I worked double shifts. I missed birthdays. I missed game. I did whatever I had to do to keep the roof over their heads. I don't fault you for wanting security. I fault you for how you went about it. But I'm not holding a grudge. That's not who I am." She nodded, wiping her eyes with a napkin. "But we almost ruined everything. We almost lost you. We almost lost the house. We almost lost our ride, too. We've been fighting so much lately. Money does that to people." "It does," Gia agreed. "But it doesn't have to. You can choose to be different. You can choose to be kind instead of desperate, and you can choose to ask for help instead of demanding it. That's the lesson I want you both to take from this." Mark sat down heavily on the bench beside Brenda. He picked up his butter pecan cone and looked at it like it was a foreign object. "Dade, can I ask you something? Something I've been wondering since we talked to H.A. Risen." "Shoot." "How much do you actually have? And don't say comfortable or enough. I need to know the number, not so I can take it, not so I can plan around it, just so I can understand, so I can stop guessing." Gia set down his coffee and looked at his son. The sun was in his eyes, making him squint. He looked older than his years, but also more peaceful. The weight of secrecy was finally lifting. "I'll tell you," he said. "But you have to promise me something first. You have to promise that this information doesn't change anything between us. That you'll still treat me the same way you treated me before you knew. That you'll still call me on Sundays. That you'll still bring the kids over for dinner. That you'll still let me be grandpa, not the man with the wallet." Mark nodded. "I promised Dad I'll learn my lesson. I don't say about the money. I say about you." Gia took a deep breath. "The last time H.A. Risen gave me a full accounting, which was about 6 months ago, the total value of my liquid assets was somewhere around $14 million. That doesn't include the real estate or the trust funds I set up for the grandkids. That's just what's in the accounts I can access directly." Mark's face went pale. Brenda dropped her spoon. The butter pecan cone melted in Mark's hand, dripping onto the wooden table. Mark whispered, "Dade, that's not comfortable. That's rich. That's really rich." "No, that's wealthy," Gia corrected. "Rich is what you spend. Wealthy is what you keep. I've never spent a dime of it. I live on my Social Security check and the small pension from the union. That's why I don't have a new truck or a bigger house. I never needed them. I had everything I wanted. Why? Marquet asked. Why would you live like that? You could have had anything. You could have traveled. You could have bought a beach house. You could have done whatever you wanted. I did do whatever I wanted, G.A. Rye said. I wanted to wake up every morning without worrying about money. I wanted to know that if any of you ever got sick, I could pay for the best doctors. I wanted to know that my grandkids would have college paid for no matter what happened to the economy. I wanted freedom, and I got it. That's what $14 million buys you. Freedom, not things, not status. Freedom. Brenda wiped her eyes again, but this time she was smiling. You set up trust funds for the kids. Already, before they were born, G.A. Rye said. I put in enough to cover 4 years of private university, plus a little extra for graduate school if they choose it. They'll have access when they turn 25. I wanted them to have a head start, but I also wanted them to run their own way first. 25 is old enough to have some life experience, young enough to still use the help. Mark was staring at his melting cone, his mind clearly racing. What about the house? Our house. You said the bank was a subsidiary of something you owned. It's not that I own the bank outright. I own a significant portion of the holding company that owns the bank. It's complicated, but the short version is that I made a call to a friend who made a call to a friend, and they put a hold on your accounts, not to punish you, just to make sure you understood that there are consequences to how you treat people. I never intended to take the house. I never intended to ruin you. I just wanted you to feel the weight of what you were trying to do. Mark set down the cone and buried his face in his hands. Brenda reached over and rubbed his back. The kids were still at the playground, oblivious to the conversation happening at their table. I almost lost everything because I was greedy, Mark said, his voice muffled. I had a father who loved me, who had more than enough to help, and I tried to steal from him. I tried to steal from my own father. You tried to redirect a check, G.A. Rye said gently. That's not the same as stealing, but it was close. It was too close. And you needed to feel how close it was. That's why I made the call. Not to hurt you. To wake you up. Brenda leaned forward. So what happens now? With the bank, with the credit CA rods, with everything, G.A. Rye shrugged. I called H.A. Risson this morning before I came to the lake. He's already released the holds. Your credit is restored. The mortgage is current. I made sure of it. But I also made sure that your accounts are flagged for review if any unusual activity happens. That's not punishment either. That's protection. For me and for you. RK looked up. What do you mean? I mean I want to help you get back on track. But I'm not going to just hand you money. That wouldn't help you. That would make things worse. You'd spend it and be right back where you stay rotted. I've seen it happen to 100 families. The money comes in, the problems go away for a little while, and then they come back twice as hard. That's not what I want for you. So what do you want? Mark asked. I want you to take that job you mentioned, the real one. I want you to sell the house and move into something you can afford on your own. I want you to pay off your debts slowly, the way I did, and learn to live within your means. And I want you to call me when things get hard, not for money but for advice, because I've been where you are. I know how to get out. Mark nodded slowly. And if I do all that, then what? Then in 20 years, when you've built your own security and your own peace, you'll look back on this day and be grateful. Because you didn't take the easy way out. You took the right way, the hard way, the way that builds character. The way that makes a man proud of himself. Brenda picked up her shake and took a long sip. G.A. Rye, what about your father? You never talk about him. What was he like? G.A. Rye's eyes softened. He was a farmer, a sharecropper. He never owned a single acre of his own land. He worked from sunrise to sunset and died at 50, 7 from a Hiarte attack that came from working too SARD and eating too little. He left my mother with 7 kids and no savings. That's why I stay rotted saving. I saw what happens when you don't. Mark looked at his father with new eyes. I never knew that. You never told me. There's a lot I never told you, Rai said. I didn't want you to grow up CARing my burdens. I wanted you to have a clean STA, but I think maybe I went too far in the other direction. I kept too much hidden. I made you think I was poor when I wasn't. And that made you think I was weak. That was my mistake. Mark shook his head. You weren't weak. You were strong. The strongest man I've ever known. I just couldn't see it. Rai smiled. You see it now. That's what matters. They finished their ice cream in comfortable silence. The kids ran back, sticky and laughing, and climbed onto their grandfather's lap. Ray wrapped his arms around them and kissed the tops of their heads. Grandpa, the little girl asked, can we come fishing with you next time? Absolutely, he said. I'll teach you how to bait a hook. Your dad still can't do it right. Mark laughed. Hey, I'm right here, Ray said. That's why I said it. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. Ray paid the bill with cash from his wallet, the same worn leather wallet he'd had for 20 years. He left a generous tip for the teenage girl working the counter. He always left a generous tip. It was a small thing, but it was a habit. He'd learned from his mother that even a few extra dollars could change someone's day. Driving back to the duplex, Mark followed in the rental car with his family. Ray watched them in his rear-view mirror, the kids waving through the back window, Brenda holding Mark's hand over the center console. They looked happier than they had in months. Lighter. Like a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Ray knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Selling a house was stressful. Finding a new one was stressful. Rotting over at Mark's age would take courage and patience. But Mark had shown him something today. He'd shown him that the boy he raised was still in there, buried under years of bad decisions and misplaced priorities. And that boy was worth fighting for. Ray pulled into his driveway and rocketed the truck. He walked up to his porch and sat in his favorite chair. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The red-tailed hawk was circling overhead, as if it had been waiting for him to come home. Mark pulled in behind him and got out of the car. The kids ran up the driveway, their energy seemingly limitless. Brenda walked slowly, her arm linked through Mark's. Mark said, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. Can we come over for dinner tomorrow? I want to see okay for you. It won't be fancy, but I think I can manage a grilled cheese without burning it. Ray smiled. I'd like that. Just make sure you use real butter. None of that argine stuff. Mark laughed. Yes, sir. They hugged at the bottom of the steps. A long hug that said more than words could. Then Mark and his family got back in the car and drove away. Ray sat on his porch and watched them go. The hawk soared red high above, catching the last rays of the sun. The neighborhood was quiet, the way it always was at dusk. He could hear a dog barking somewhere in the distance. The faint hum of a lawn mower. He pulled out his phone and called Risen. Just checking in, he said. Everything okay on your end? Everything's fine. The holds re-released. Your son's accounts clean. I took the liberty of setting up a small line of credit for him in case of emergencies. He doesn't know about it yet. You can tell him when you're ready. That's good, Ray said. That's very good. Thank you. Is a good man, Ray. He just lost his way for a while. He'll find it again. He's got a good teacher? I hope so, Ray said. I really hope so. He hung up and leaned back in his chair. The stieras were stierotting to APR. He counted them the way he'd done as a boy on his father's farm, a lifetime ago. There were more stars in the city than he remembered. Or maybe he just hadn't been looking. Tomorrow, he'd help his son move out of the big house, and into something smaller. He'd help him find a job and a budget and a new way of living. He'd be there to offer advice, not money. That's what Mark needed. That's what he'd always needed. And someday, maybe Mark would sit on his own porch and watch his own grandchildren play in the yard, and he'd think about the day his father taught him what really mattered. Not money, not status, not things, just love. Just the quiet peace of a life well lived. Rai smiled and closed his eyes. The night air was cool and sweet. The hawk had gone to roost. The world was at peace, and so was he. The moving van arrived at 7 in the morning, a battered white box truck with a magnetic sign on the side that said, "Two guys and a truck." Rai was already on the porch with a thermos of coffee and a bag of donuts he'd picked up from the diner before sunrise. Dottie had given him an extra dozen for free, saying they were day-old anyway. He knew they weren't. She just liked him. Mark pulled up in the rental car, Brenda beside him, the kids in the back still rubbing sleep from their eyes. They'd spent the last 2 weeks packing and sorting and making the kind of hard decisions that come with downsizing. The big house with 4 bedrooms and a 2-car garage had sold in less than a week, snapped up by a young couple with twins on the way. The meme rocket was hot and Mark had gotten more than he expected, enough to pay off most of the credit cards and still have a down payment for something smaller. "We found a place," RK said, walking up the driveway with a box of mugs in his arms. "Not far from here. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, and a garage big enough for 1 car. It's not fancy, but it's ours." Rai stood up and clapped his son on the shoulder. "That's perfect, a duplex, just like the one I stay rotted in. You'll love it. The neighbors keep to themselves and the yard is easy to maintain. You can teach the kids to mow the lawn the way I taught you." Mark winced. "With a push mower?" "That's right. Builds tractor." Brenda came up the steps with the kids trailing behind. She looked tired but relieved, the kind of tired that came from a good night's sleep after weeks of worry. "Ray, we wanted to thank you for not stepping in and buying us a new house. We know you could have. We know you had the money, but you let us do it ourselves, and that means more than you know." Rai nodded. "You needed to do it yourselves. If I'd bought you a house, you'd always wonder if you could have done it on your own. Now you know you can. That's a gift that keeps on giving." The moving crew was efficient. 2 young guys with strong backs and easy smiles. They loaded furniture and boxes onto the truck while Rai supervised from the porch, directing them with the kind of authority that came from years of running his own crew. He knew how to move furniture. He knew how to wrap a lamp and tape a box and stack a load so nothing shifted on the road. By noon, the house was empty. Mark walked through the rooms one last time, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. He stopped in the living room and looked out the sliding glass door at the back yard. The swing set was still there, waiting for the next family. The garden beds Brenda had planted were overgrown but still colorful. "It's strange," he said. "I hated this house for the last 2 years. I hated the mortgage. I hated the maintenance. I hated the feeling that I was drowning in it. But now that it's gone, I feel a little sad. We had good times here." The kids ran to walk in this living room. "We had birthday parties in the backyard. We made a home here." "You did make a home?" Rai said. "And you'll make another one. A home is just a place where people love each other. The house doesn't matter. The people do." Ark turned to his father, his eyes glistening. "I think I finally understand that. I think I spent so much time trying to build a house that I forgot to build a home. I was so focused on the square footage and the granite countertops that I didn't notice I was losing the people I wanted to share it with." "But you noticed in time," Rai said. "That's what matters. You noticed before it was too late." They loaded into the rental car and followed the moving van to the new duplex. It was on a quiet street lined with mature oak trees, the kind of street where kids played in the road and neighbors waved from their porches. The duplex itself was modest, painted a soft beige with white trim. The yard was small but neat, with a single oak tree in the center and a patch of grass that would be easy to mow. The kids ran inside immediately, claiming bedrooms and testing beds. Brenda started unpacking kitchen boxes, directing the movers on where to put the heavy furniture. Mark stood on the front porch with Ga, watching the neighborhood come alive. "This is good," Mark said. "This is really good. I feel lighter already." "Debt is a heavy thing," Ga said. "It sits on your shoulders, and you don't even realize it until it's gone. I went through the same thing when I paid off my first house. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years." Mark looked at his father. "How did you do it? You never made a lot of money as a plumber. How did you pay off your house so fast?" "I didn't spend money on things I didn't need. I drove the same truck for 20 years. I ate at the same diner for 30. I wore the same boots until the soles wore through. I didn't have cable TV. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 65. I just saved and saved and saved some more. And when I had enough, I paid off the mortgage. It was boring. It was slow. But it worked." And Mark nodded slowly. "I always thought you were cheap. I used to make fun of you for it. I'd tell Brenda that my dad wore shoes held together with duct tape. I thought it was embarrassing. Now I think it's the most impressive thing I've ever seen. You had millions in the bank, and you still patched your boots. That's not cheap, that's disciplined." Ga chuckled. "The duct tape was just because I didn't want to walk to the store. The boots had another year in them. No sense wasting good leather." They laughed together, the sound carrying across the quiet street. A neighbor across the way waved from his own porch. Ga waved back. He'd be coming here often. He could already see himself sitting on this porch, watching the grandkids play, sipping coffee from a thermos. The movers finished by 3 in the afternoon. Mark then, a wad of bills he'd saved from the house sale. Brenda had the kitchen organized and the kids' rooms set up by the time Ga walked through the front door. He looked around at the modest living room, the worn couch, the mismatched coffee table, the cardboard boxes stacked in the corner. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't big, but it was clean and it was paid for. Well, mostly paid for. The mortgage was small enough that Mark could afford it on a single income. That was the goal. "What's the plan now?" Jerry asked, settling into the armchair Mark had insisted on keeping. It was a ratty old recliner that had been in their basement for years, but it was comfortable. Ga had sat in it 100 times. It felt like home. Mark sat on the couch across from him, Brenda beside him. The kids were in their new rooms, sorting through toys. "First things first, I start my new job on Monday. It's at a healthcare store, like I told you. The pay isn't great, but it's steady, and I get a discount on tools, which is nice. Brenda is going to take a part-time job at a real estate office, just doing paperwork. We'll be okay. We won't be rich, but we'll be okay." Jara nodded. "That's all you need to be, okay? Enough to eat, enough to sleep, enough to pay the bills. Everything else is extra." Brenda leaned forward. "And what about your money, Ga? What are you going to do with it? I mean, you have all this wealth just sitting there. Aren't you going to spend it on something fun? A boat, a vacation?" Ga shook his head. "I might buy a new pair of boots. But other than that, I don't need anything. I'm going to keep doing what I've always done. Drink my coffee, watch the hawks, eat at the diner. Maybe I'll take the grandkids fishing more often. That's all." Mark smiled. "You're a strange man, Dad. Most people would be flying to Europe or buying a yacht." "I'm not most people," Ga said. "I never wanted to be. I wanted to be the kind of man who could look at himself in the mirror and not feel ashamed. I wanted to be the kind of man who could leave something behind that mattered. Not money, not property, just a good name." A name my grandkids would be proud to see, a Rye. Mark's voice was thick when he spoke. They will be, Dad. They will be proud. The next few weeks settled into a routine. Mark went to work at the Ray store, running the inventory and helping customers with their projects. He rotted coming home tired but satisfied. The kind of tired that came from honest work. Brenda found her part-time job and rotted bringing in a small paycheck. They had just enough to cover their bills and a little extra for the occasional treat. Rai visited every Sunday. He'd bring donuts or a casserole or just himself. He'd sit in the Aram chair and watch football with Mark while the kids played on the floor. He'd help Brenda with the dishes and teach his granddaughter how to fold napkins into swans. He didn't talk about money. He didn't talk about the trust or the portfolio. He just talked about life. One afternoon in late September, Rai called Rison. I want to set up a small account for Mark and Brenda. Nothing too big, just enough to cover emergencies. A few $1,000s they can access if something goes wrong. Rison typed something on his keyboard. Consider it done. I'll set it up with their bank and send them a card. They won't know it's from you unless you tell them. Don't tell them yet. Let them figure out their budget first. They need to know they can do it on their own. The account is just a safety net. It's there if they need it. Understood, Rison said. Yeah, Rai said. I want to increase the amount in the grandkids' trust funds. Double it. I want them to have options. If they want to be doctors or artists or mechanics, I want them to have the freedom to choose. That's generous, Rai, very generous. It's not generous, it's practical. I'm not going to be around forever. I want to make sure they're taken care of. Rison paused. You're a good man, Rai. You always have been. I'm just an old plumber who got lucky, Rai said. That's all. You're not lucky. You're smart. There's a difference. Luck is random, smart is consistent. You've been consistent for 50 years. That's why you have what you have. Rai hung up and looked out the window. The leaves were rotting to turn, red and gold against the blue sky. The hawks were migrating south, their shadows crossing the yard on their way to warmer climates. He thought about his son, about the way Mark had changed in just a few short months. The desperation was gone from his eyes. The resentment was gone from his voice. In its place was something quieter, something steadier, something that looked a lot like peace. Mark was running. He was running to live within his means. He was running to appreciate what he had instead of chasing what he didn't. He was running to be a father and a husband without the constant pressure of debt crushing him from above. It wasn't easy. There were tough days. There were still arguments and late nights, and the occasional panic about unexpected expenses. But they weathered them. They weathered them together, as a family, without looking for an easy out. Smiled. That's what he'd wanted all along. Not gratitude, not obedience, just growth. Just the quiet satisfaction of watching his son become the man he was meant to be. He stood up from his chair and grabbed his jacket. It was Sunday. Time to drive over to the duplex, drink some lukewarm coffee, and watch his grandkids chase squirrels in the yard. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.